Hey guys, Gary D, eXp Real Estate. Session 3 is here finally. Sorry about the delay. We just got super busy the last 2 or 3 weeks with listings and sales, and that's just what we do, setting up 2019. But it's here now. Go through it. There's some instructions about getting your leads, and we'll send out some more information to dial you in. Take care.
Greetings, everybody. This is Gary DeGrazia, Senior eXp Real Estate, and this is session 3 of our three-part training on off-market probate homes. And I want to thank you for continuing with your education. And I just want to make sure that we set the table here on what these three trainings are all about. This is a foundational training in off-market real estate. As you know, this has been my business for over 30 years. I've been in the business 43 years of real estate sales, and off-market probate homes has been, the niche that I've been practicing since '87 that actually carried me through when we had our rollback in our marketplace in the '90s, and then again when the heavy hitter came in 2008, 9, 10. Probates got me through all that because it's steady business. It's not predicated on the market, if it's a buyer seller market, what the economy is. These homes usually have to be sold in order to settle the debts of the estate and then pass out the remaining assets to the family members. So, a fantastic place to run your real estate business in, like I have, or just add to your current production. And remember what we're telling everybody here. This is not about forgetting everything else that you've been doing. If you're working retail buyers through the MLS and collecting those leads off of open houses or whatever you've been doing, keep that going while you're adding and perfecting probate real estate. My system's only going to take you 3 to 5 hours a week to do your marketing, do your follow up, things like that. Then, of course, when you get into a listing or a sale, then you'll be putting in the normal escrow hours that you normally would do in any case, right? So to find an extra 3 to 5 hours a week to keep your marketing going and your following up is going to pay off for you handsomely because you're going to be able to, generate a whole amount of business that you haven't even known that was out there. So we're opening your eyes. Now, this foundation course, these 3 sessions, are just to open your eyes. It's just to give you a basis because how we're doing this is unlike other systems that you may go to and people are charging you for, and then they tell you got an 800 number to call if you have any questions. You really can't learn probates that way, folks, okay? It has to be handheld. You have to have somebody actually take you through the transaction and show you. And that's what we do here. We stay with you, and that's why we can offer this course now for free. Because since I semi-retired from regular real estate in 2016, and I'm not in the trenches every day generating the kind of income that I did just from sales, I am now doing more consulting and working with these network agents that come through here. And as I teach you how to go out and set appointments and get the leads, that's your first order of business right now. Everything else is going to come afterwards. So you don't have to worry about what documents do we need to close escrow that the title company is going to require. How do I handle this if it comes up and that in the sale if it comes up? Don't worry about all that. You're going to have plenty and ample time to revert back to those questions when you get into deals. If you can't set an appointment, then there's no sense knowing how to do the contract, how to get through due diligence that we've taught you, and everything else. Because without the appointments, there's no need for anything, right? So I want you to spend your time on learning how to contact the estate, how to get an appointment, and then either myself, if you're local here, or one of my co-agents, and we're everywhere, will go with you on that appointment, and you're going to learn as we do the appointment. I was just with one of my agents, newer agents, for the last month or two, and we were on an appointment this past weekend, and sitting there watching me going through my presentation with the estate. And she actually even chimed in a little bit on the real estate side of things because my presentation is mostly about probate. And then if it's a listing we're going after, we'll put some listing information in there like you all do right now. If it's just a straight sale that we're trying to do, then we're presenting the facts of that. But in this case, the estate didn't know what they were doing, if they were going to sell it outright to an investor, which it looks like that's what they want to do, or to test the market and see, what they could get there. We were talking both sides of what we do. So basically, all the options, and all we're doing in this is explaining to the estate all the options that they have if they're going to sell the real estate. And then we follow up with them until that relationship is solid enough that when they decide to pull the trigger, and some of them pull it right away on the first appointment, you know what, I want to do this. Where do we start? Or other ones say, I really like your information. Let us think about it. We're going to interview a few other people. If it's a listing presentation I'm doing, or if it's an offer, we got a couple other investors that said they want to make offers, or we just want to look at them. I have ways of countering all that. And that's what you'll learn when we get to that point. So all these sessions that you're going through right now is basically to give you just a background so you kind of know what we're doing. But it's not necessary to dial it all in so you could just repeat from A to Z everything you got to do in a probate property, because it's not going to happen. And you're just going to get frustrated, and you're going to leave this golden goose and go back to what you've been doing. If you perfect this, and more importantly, when I say perfect, your people skills and your follow-up skills, all the rest of this will fall into place for you, especially with us with you. If it takes you only one deal to get this down with our training, holding your hand, and now you can move forward yourself, then that's it. You'll be keeping all your commissions from that point forward, and the only time you'll pay anything to me is if you need me on a consultant basis, and that's just on an hourly basis. If you need 3 deals to do it, or 6, or like some, Gary, I just want to be your partner on these. I'll go out and get the appointments, and you come in and do the deal, we'll split 50-50. I'm happy with that. So you can do anywhere you want to go with this, but our goal is to get you to the point where you can stand alone. That takes about 3 deals. So again, just so you understand, that's where we will be making our money because we split those deals with you. So it is very important to us that you're trained right, that you know what you're doing. But we know, which you don't know right now, because you're thinking probate language and system and required documents. That's all you're thinking about, putting probates into your business, rather than thinking, I need to know where I get my leads and how do I go approach the estate so I can get appointments. And then when I do that and I get appointments and we connect on something with Gary, I'm going to learn the next part of this, okay? So right now, we're going to be talking about that portion of this training is we have presented an offer, they loved it, we're in escrow, and what we're going to do now to get through this, okay? And we're going to assume that level 1 is the way we're doing it. We're going after this for level 1, bringing in an investor, because that's the way we always want to look at a probate opportunity until, from us giving all the options to the executor, who is, if you remember, is either appointed by the court, originally the PR, to be the executor or the administrator. Executor with a will, administrator without a will. So we're going to give them all our options. And this one is saying, yeah, we want to go all cash. So that's what we're doing with them. So we are bringing them this cash offer. And we're going to, again, explain where we're sitting down with them that we gave you all the options and the way you wanted to do this. You told me it was very important that you get your life back in order. You can move back to Oklahoma if they're out of state and then they're staying at the property or coming out once a month. And that just raises, a lot of stress on the family doing that, month after month going through this probate process. And we're going to reiterate to them that you want it as is. You didn't want to have to do any work on this property. You wanted to get it closed quick. 15 days or less sounded great to you. You didn't want to have to pay any commission because, remember, for our benefit, you don't want to get into the commission, issues. Because if you're going after commissions, all these estates are going to ask you, what are you going to charge me? Because they're trying to eliminate you. You may be the best agent for them, but because you're charging a full six, they're going to go with the guy that gave them everything for 3.5. And as you learned earlier, a lot of times that will be me because I know most of the time I'll get that whole 3.5 because we'll sell the property ourselves, right? But up front, it's important to set the table that this is all cash to you. The number we are going to give you with is what you're putting in to the estate's bank account when this thing closes. We're going to re-clarify there's no bank or appraisals done when these cash offers come, okay? You don't have to worry about the property being vacant, maybe being vandalized or whatever. There's tenants in the property and you don't want to deal with them. We're going to take that over for you until we close this escrow, and we're going to take on the tenants. You don't have to worry about getting the tenants out to sell the property. This is all valuable services that we provide. Okay? So, back to the cash offer. When he's sitting down with them, we're going to explain to them. Now, remember what I told you up front in this process when you decided you wanted the fast cash offer was that this is a business for the investors that we represent. Now, that may be you because you might be your own investor. And then you would say, this is a business for me, so I have to look at this as numbers. And if this doesn't work for you, we'll have options, of course. But right now, you indicated that you wanted the fast cash as is, quick close offer, and that's what we're discussing again. But please understand, this is not emotional. It's numbers only, and any investor is coming in basically on the same math as I am tonight. Okay? Now, I'm going to explain to them that when you sell as is all cash, with the luxury of having it done quick and it's all cash and there's no banks or inspections or whatever to deal with on the seller side, that means usually it's going to be less money in their pocket than if we had put it on the MLS and looked at exposing it for retail offers. And we tell them, that is your choice. When we're all done with this and you see the bottom line, if you decide you think you could do better or you want to do better, then that's the route we'll go. And I'll explain that to you when we get there. Now, I want to go over the math with you, Mr. Seller, Mr. Estate Seller. Any investor calling you right now, or any agent calling you that says they have an investor that wants to buy the property. The key is it's an investor that's going to buy it to either fix and flip it or landlord to hold it or whatever. They're all going to buy on the same math, and that's around 70 to 75% of ARV, which is after repaired value, right? Less the cosmetic costs. So if you're going in there at $100,000 and you're giving them $70,000, and there's $10,000 worth of cosmetic costs, you're at $60,000. And as long as there isn't a lot of inspection costs that come up once you're in escrow during your due diligence, then that's the offer you're giving them, 60 grand. But when you back in commissions that they would have paid at 100, the work that they would have had to taken care of to get 100, to get retail, they're going to see that the net difference isn't that great. Okay, but we want to make sure here the main point is 70 to 75% is anybody that's calling you right now is going to give you on this property. They may be telling you a different number now, especially if they know there's an offer in place, because they want to tempt you to let that offer go if any obstacles come up. They want to tempt you with the possibility of a higher price. But once they get into it, they haven't even seen the house. How can they give you a price that's for real right now? They don't know the cosmetics that we've been through and calculated. They don't have any inspections. They can't guarantee that they can close at that number that they're tempting you with right now. And that's why we're bringing this up to you in this presentation. Because if there are investors and you want to try, I will show you how with working with us, I can go explore those offers for you. Make sure they're real, cut to the chase, and if there is something there better than what we're bringing you, we'll represent you and get that thing closed at a reduced rate and all this stuff because the deal's right there. It just has to close. And we'll make sure all the probate stuff goes through. Because most of the investors out there do not know the probate process. They do not know about letters of testamentary or administration. They do not know about the NOPA or the waiver of NOPA and all this, the federal taxes that have to be in order, okay? They're good investors and they know what they're doing real estate wise, but they don't know this. And you might be giving up a deal that's ready to go, that everything's in order like our deals, because someone's promising you extra money, and then you're really, you could be with egg on your face because the heirs are going, we were ready to close this thing, and now we go to this other deal and they're offering even less now than the other offer was. So you don't want to get into those, but we have ways, Mr. Executor, to test all that for you, because our goal is to get you through this, get as much money as we possibly can through the option that you want to go, that we explained to you, and have you looking good to the family when this is all done. Okay? So we're not going to be dealing with commissions. And remember, when we're sitting down talking to them about the numbers that we can do, we're presenting our offer, we're going to have net sheets for them. I'm going to go into that a little bit more detail. Now, comps. You want to have comps with you again. When you initially sat down with them and talked about value, and then you brought in the offer, and now you're ready to move forward, there might have been some changes in the comps that you first showed them, or maybe some other properties closed over the last 2 or 3 weeks that you've been negotiating. So and the comps you used the first time, you want to bring those, because what we're doing with these comps is just breaking down the numbers that they think the seller received. Because most sellers who are not real estate minded, because they don't do this every day like we do, they see a house received 500,000. That's what they think the seller got. They don't realize that was gross. Okay, so we want to go through each of these comps again, and we show them what the commission that seller paid to get that price. There were some concessions the seller paid for. They paid some closing costs for that seller. There was pest, roof, home inspections that were done, and we find that out by calling those agents on those deals that close and asking them for that information. And we get that from them because we tell them, look, we do off market. And for helping us out here, anytime you have a buyer with a specific need, let me know. And if we have a probate we're working on and it fits your need, we'll do the deal together and split it 50-50. So they'll work with you. And they'll tell us, yeah, Gary, that one had a 8,000 pest. The roof was okay, only needed about 1,500 in repairs, but there was a crack in the foundation. We had to get that fixed. It was 15 grand. Oh, okay. So we're talking about almost 30 grand. So we factored that in. So when we're sitting with those comps, now the seller has a true feel. Okay, they sold it for 100, but there was, or let's say 500, but there was 30 grand worth of inspections that came up, so that's 470. They paid a $25,000 commission, 5%, so that pushes at 545. They gave the buyer 5,000 in closing costs, so now we're at 540. They had some closing, so 437. So they sold it for 500, but what they netted was 437, assuming the property was free and clear, and assuming there wasn't a big city tax like Oakland has $16.50 per thousand, or there wasn't sewer laterals that had to be done, and either they're paying for it to be replaced, 8,500 on average, or they're reducing the price again for that. Okay, so that's kind of bare bones reductions. Well, that seller that sold for 500 in actuality netted about 430 to 435. That's what we're talking to them about, not 500, and that's what they have to understand. Because if our offer is at 375, okay, then we're basically about 55,000, 60,000 less on a wholesale deal, not 125,000. And if there's 5 of them, that's roughly 10 grand a piece, 10 to 12.5 a piece that they're getting less. And it's a lot easier to negotiate with that. So you have the comps to break down all those questions. And we'll use our MLS because that will tell us right off what it was listed for, how long it took to sell, was the prices reduced, what did they end up selling for, what commission did they paid, was there any concessions paid, and then of course, if this is a comp we're using, and this happened to be one of mine, I would have called myself I said, hey, Gary, this is Gary D. Tell him the story. I do probates. That's all I do off market. I have one right now I'm negotiating on. And I'd like to ask you a question about yours that sold over at, 37th Street. And let me know on the pest. How did the pest go on this? How did this go? How did that go? Okay. So you create this relationship with that agent and say, look, just let me know anytime you have a buyer, and I'll let you know what we're working on. If we have anything that fits your buyer's need, we go do the deal together and we'll split it 50-50. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, here's the pest. You want a copy of the report? I would love copies if you give them to me. But if not, the verbals would be fine. And I would just say, look, I understand you can't give me copies, but if my seller has any questions about the validity of these costs, is it okay if they call you and you would tell them? Yeah, sure, just give them my number. Okay, great. Boom. So we're going through all that just to let them know that, hey, this 500 is not what the seller got. Okay? That's all we're doing right now is bringing them down to reality. Now, a good tip on this, like I said, is having a net sheet and showing how much net proceeds that each of the heir was receiving at final distribution. And this would be because at the close of escrow, remember, those funds do not go out to the rightful heirs that have an interest in the real estate. It has to go to an estate bank account, and it could be 3 or 4 months before they can disperse those funds. So you have to let them know that what we're basing this on right now is closing that escrow and that money going into the estate bank account, and what your gross amount's going to be is X amount of dollars based on the offer that we have on the table. So in that $500,000 offer at 375, they were going to net roughly 374, because in this case they have a little closing cost they have to do. We're picking up most of it. But if there was sewer laterals, if there was city tax and all this, then we would determine if we were going to pay for that as our buyer. And that's what we try to do. So it's limited to the seller because that looks good to them. But of course, we have to adjust the price because whatever our buyer is paying for this, he has to add in our commission. He has to add in the work, the holding costs, the resale commission, and then have a profit margin of usually around 15% on the money. So if you're dealing with cash investors, a 15% on let's say that they were totally into a property, and this one 375, let's just say it came out to be 400, it'd be a little bit more than that. To make that 15%, okay, that'd be roughly 60 grand they would need to make on that. And that could fit. That would mean a net sales price of 460 if they listed it at 5. Well, commission's 25, so they don't have a whole lot of room there, right? So you can see why, even though it looks like 500 to 375 is a lot of daylight there, 125 grand, you have to break it down to the estate that it's not when you're looking at it from the buyer's point of view. And if they say, well, that's way too much to give up on this property, okay, great. Do you have the funds to fix this property up so we can get you that high number ourselves? And you make that extra 50 grand. Well, how much would it be? Well, you saw right now we know the cosmetic is 25, and we're going to get pest roof and home inspections. We'll have to factor that all in. But you might have to come up with 40 grand or so. Well, no, we don't have that kind of money. Okay, well, if you don't have that kind of money, then we really can't go that way, right? Unless you wanted to go with our fix-up program. They go, well, how does that work? And then I explain them on that. I'm not going to go into that detail now because that is just an obstacle hurdle that we use. When that comes up, if we get stuck at this time while we're presenting our offer with the gap, even though we took that 500 to 375, that 125 gap, we took it down to maybe 50 or 60. Sometimes it's still too much. Even though let's say it's 50 grand difference and there's 5 heirs, they're each getting 10,000 less, okay? Well, you have to be able to break that 10,000 down and show them, okay, for us to get that extra 50, somebody would be paying this. Do you think they would pay that for this property in this condition? Okay? Probably not. And we don't even know what the inspection costs are yet, right? Okay? Because we're just getting our offer signed right now. we're not ratified, we're not in due diligence in order to take the time and spend the money to order our reports. So we're going to show them that. Then I'm going to show them, because it's going to come up in the back of their mind or later that night or whatever if they don't sign on the spot. I'm going to say, let's look at a net sheet if you guys were to sell it at 495. See, we're calling that 500, right? And I'm going to go through, I'm going to put in the commission 5%, all their other charges they would have. We know the cosmetic, how much that's going to be. I would be anticipating pest, roof, and home inspection, because we would say, hey, look, at our guy looked at it, and he feels that you have some liability over here, probably in the vicinity of 40 grand for all that. But of course, that will be depending. That's your cosmetic, and then he thinks there's probably another 10 grand in pests and roof patching and things like that. So that's what we're going to use. And based on all that, here's your net. If you did all that, paid a commission, you guys would be netting about 420. So I show them the difference between the 375 and the 420, right? Because that's what this is all about. So at the 495, 50 grand fix up, less sale costs at 25, they're netting somewhere around 420. And remember, part of that 50 grand is hypothetical because we don't know yet. But it's okay, because if we anticipate it too low, we have the right to back out of this deal when we have to remove our inspection contingencies, or we can renegotiate. But you have to show these sellers what the work is. Don't just say verbally it is. So right now I'm talking about what I know, cosmetic, and we'll show them a bid that we do, $33 to $35 a square foot. That gets paint and carpets and new kitchens, new bathrooms, things like that. Okay, doesn't count roofs, doesn't count windows, doesn't count garage doors, doesn't count pest reports, roof reports, home inspections. So this is just a round and about way of showing them. Then the sales costs. In order to get that full price, they'd have to be on the MLS and paying, in this case, we put roughly a 5% commission, and their net would be 420. Then we show them at our price right now tonight at 375. You're going to have about $1,000 in costs that you have to pay, because we're picking up most of everything else. You're going to net 374. So now the difference is not 374 to 495. It's just 420, 374. Okay. So based on that, the estate would net 46,000 more if they took care of all the retail costs, fix-up costs, paid commission, sales, title costs, all that stuff. If they do all that, they can net 46,000 more. And if there was 5 of them on this property, it's basically 15 or about 10 grand a piece, right? 10 grand more if they're willing to do all that. But the property now will have to appraise when it sells. Probably going to be a loan, because you're probably going to have a move-in buyer who's buying it, FHA, VA, something like that, low down. So it's going to have to go through those inspections and all that. And the buyer has to close. They got to make sure the buyer doesn't get cold feet, or they lose a job before we close escrow. They're going to stretch them out 45 to 50 days. The work's going to have to be taken care of. That could stretch out the escrow. So the heirs here, in this case, I'm sorry, it's 4 heirs receive money at final distribution, roughly $11,500 less if they go with my offer right now than if we can get them the full retail offer, taking on the cost to fix up and everything to go. I don't talk about the 46 so much. I talk about 11.5 less. Each heir receives at the close of escrow, and then once that money goes into the estate account, they each have about 87,000 coming to them, rather than a possible 98,000 if we went through the fix-up process and chased a retail buyer. It's not going to be that big of a deal, folks, I'm telling you. Of course, the difference between 5,000 and 22,000 is a lot. The difference between 80 and 90 grand, not a whole lot, okay, when they get to that point. And then there's other things that will happen. Of course, just so, for those of you that are thinking about this, when they're in escrow and they're getting ready for final, we close and the funds go to the estate bank account, and then 3 or 4 months later, final distribution, the probate's over. That's when they're going to have to pay the attorney fees and any other court costs. So that 98.5 that they were going to get is coming down, and so would the 87.5. based on the attorney fees and everything else. Okay, but we're talking gross dollars right now. Okay, so a dialogue that I will use with them in this case is, okay, Mr. Executive, if you and the heirs can settle and be good with 87,000 each right now, when we close escrow, and that will be going into the estate bank account for your share, then we can close the sale in 5 days. Now, if you need more, if you're looking for that 98, of course, more is better, right, than less. But you now know what it's going to take to try to get that 98.5. You know, what pearls we're going to have to go through to get there. Make sure, extra inspection work doesn't pop up, or further inspections don't bite us, or the interest rates go up and the buyer backs out, or it doesn't appraise, or whatever. Okay? If you rather hold out for that, we can do that. And what we can do now is we'll put you on the market if you want to test it. You sign our offer as it's written here tonight. I'll put a subject to in it that it's subject to you putting the property on the market with us for 60 days and see if we can get you more money. And if you can't, then we'll close out our transaction with our buyer and we'll be looking good. Okay? And of course, we're going to put it on the market, So we're going to build in a commission that time, because if it sells on the MLS, we have to have the commission built in at that time to pay us and pay the buyer's agent, right? But if our original offer with our investor prevails, because we couldn't get anything better, then of course the original terms stay. All I'm doing here is giving the estate the options that will prevent them from signing our offer. I'm giving them anywhere they think they would want to try before they accept this. See, when something's in front of you to accept and it's not everything you wanted, you're looking for other reasons not to do it, hoping and dreaming that you can get this over there. But when you give them that option, then what you're doing is cutting it right down to our level playing field. And look at, if you like us and you believe in our background and our probate experience and what we do, there's no reason to go to anybody else. We're going to guide you, and we don't care if this investor deal closes or we get you more money on the open market. What we're looking for is to make you happy, get a reference from you and a reference from the estate attorney when this is all done. I can find my investor another property, okay? And it takes a while to build in that, trust. But if you truly believe in that it's service before profit, you'll do very well in this business after a while, okay? So that script that I use with them is great. And if they want more money, then okay, great. I'm setting the stage for them to list with us and see if we can do better. Best of both worlds, okay? Now, if they list with you and there's no offers at the higher price, then it'll be your choice to go with the offer at hand or make an adjustment in the price because the market may have changed. And what I'm meaning by this is, let's say we offered $375 and the ARV was $500. These people thought they were going to be able to get more, maybe $425 as is, and it just didn't happen. All the offers they were getting was from investors and all around the price we have, okay? So if that takes us 60 days for the seller to get it right in their mind that, Gary's $375 offer that we signed is probably pretty good, then they have to know that when they turn around and say, okay, I think we're going to go with your offer at $375, I make sure that they understand that, listen, okay, now I have to go back to the buyer. The offer's on there, but I had to put a clause in there, as you understand, that it was subject to the buyer's reevaluation of the numbers at the time we move forward. So if it's only 30 days, probably not too much has changed. We're probably looking good. 60 days, there could be other comps. The market could be coming down. Who knows? So that's what we risk. But if you want to chase that 98.5, that's what we have to do. I don't mind putting in the time. I don't get paid unless you get paid. So, I just want to open your eyes so you make sure you know what's going on, right? So either way, you should have a deal here, right? Either earning 4% on the cash offer at $375 that we're coming in with, right? which would mean about 15 grand, and an exit listing after rehab at 500 for another 10 grand. So we're looking at about 25 grand on this 375 house when it's all settled. And if you're good and you sell it yourself on the exit, you're picking up another 12.5, which would mean on that $500,000 ARV house that you originally bought for 375, you're going to make as the agent 37.5 if you did everything. Of course, we had the two sides coming in with our offer. We got the listing for the third side, and we sold it ourselves on the exit strategy. And you should be able to sell 1 out of 4 yourself. Maybe even better, but 1 out of 4 should work. Okay? So, very lucrative. Now, if you just received the listing, and let's say they want to go at 450, try the market. Because of the work needed, they're taking 50 grand off. And we know that's probably not going to happen, but hey, we'll try it for you. As long as you understand this is your price, and we've been advising you it's probably not going to go, but we want to get it clear in your mind, and more importantly, the heirs' mind, that we tried to get you more money for the property. Okay? So at that 450, we're going to go in. We're going to ask them at this point, if we're putting on the market now, we need 2.5 to do this. And if that works, we're going to receive roughly 11,250. And if we sell it ourselves, we're picking up another 2.5 for another 11,250. So we ended up with 22.5 on this deal that was off market, that your agents in your office sitting next to you had no clue it was even available, and you just picked this up. Not to mention the other sellers and buyers that you pick up from when you market this house, when you open it. Agents, buyers are coming in. Buyers who are sellers are coming in looking at it. Maybe investors are looking at it, and you're picking up more clients for your business, okay? See how lucrative this is, all right? Now, either way, the estate's going to win, whatever way they want to go, because they're doing what they want to do. If they're convinced after everything and there's some explanations done, yeah, you know what, we'll stay with the as is. Or, you know what, Gary, we do want to list it. And we had a couple agents that was telling us they wanted to list it. We interviewed them. They didn't talk anywhere near about the probate and all the requirements like you did, just like you told us they probably won't. And we feel comfortable going with you. Let's list this. And then if not, we can deal with your investors' offers at that time. There you go. This is why we love off-market probates, okay? All right? And again, don't worry about the mechanics. Well, what about this here? Well, you said that. Don't worry about the mechanics. I'm doing some of this in general terms, just so you understand the concept of what we're doing. Okay? All right. So, attorney roadblocks. Now, this is going to come up in probably every probate that you do that has an estate attorney. Now, the mindset that you have to have is that every estate attorney most likely has a relationship going with a real estate agent. And that could be their wife, their husband, brother, sister, college buddy, just an agent that they've gotten to know over the years, fraternity brother, whatever the reason. They have an agent, and most of the attorneys tell the agents what to do. And most that I've talked to said, most of the agents we deal with don't know anything about probate, but they'll do whatever I want them to do, so it's okay. You know, I got a good relationship with them, and now our kids are playing Little League together, so, you know, it's that type of stuff. So you got to be able to deal with this, because what we try to do is get a signature on our contract or our listing when we sit down presenting our offer with the estate. There's some things you have to do to try to make that happen. If not, we're setting the stage what's going to happen if you're going to go to your attorney first, Mr. Executor, and ask him to look this over and what you're doing, because you're going to find out that the attorneys do not want to approve or disapprove anything. They don't want that tied to them, okay? And if you bring them the offer and ask them, say, I'm not going to approve that. That's not the way to do this. You should wait, and then we'll put it on the market. I got a great agent that I deal with, and boom, our deal is done. So we got to be smarter than that. And I've learned this over the years from losing deals that way, okay? So we're going to explain to them the attorney will not approve our offer most of the time for mostly liability reasons. They don't want to have that liability. And then you factor in they may have their own agent, right? Now, if seller agrees in price and terms with us, what we're going to explain to them and ask them to understand and accept that, hey, we went over terms, we went over comps, you feel everything is good, the only hang up is your attorney. The only way to get this thing done right now, is to sign this offer. And then what we're going to do is that's going to let the attorney know that you want it. And then we're going to build in some things in this offer that your attorney will have the right to review it. Your heirs are going to love you for that because you got them an offer on the property. And the heirs are going to have the same right to say, no, we disapprove this, and everything stops. So, but unless you show your attorney that you want this deal, it's not going to go. And then you're going to be confused and you're just going to buy that reason. He said no. And it's because of everything else than what's best for you right now. Okay? So we have to show that. So we're going to place this clause that we're going to put into our addendum. Remember the addendum that I showed you when we wrote our offers? The all-important addendum that talks about the independent administrations and everything else. We're going to put a clause in there that says, this ratified offer is subject to a state attorney's review and disapproving in writing of any terms within 3 days from delivery to the estate attorney's office. That's a powerful statement because what it's saying is, knowing that the attorneys don't want to approve or disapprove, then I'm giving them the task they have to disapprove this offer in writing. And they're not going to do that because they don't want the estate to come back and say, why didn't you let me take that offer? The market just come down now. It's 3 months later and we just lost another 10%. I wish you would have just, went with this thing. They don't want that to happen. And of course, we are letting them know that, right? This could happen. So accept our offer and then we'll bring it to your attorney. He has the right to look everything over. That's all you were going to do. But if you do it on your own before you show them you want this, they're not going to approve it. Okay? Then we'll see what happens. Now, this should do the trick most of the time with the PR signing your offer. Okay? And once we're here, usually I don't have any trouble with the estate attorney. And what I will do is when the offer is being delivered to the attorney, and I normally have the title company have your delivery service take it to the attorney's office, so I have it on record when it was dropped off by their delivery guy or gal. Okay? And now I know that starts the 3 days, right? And of course, I'll have title call up and say, Mr. Attorney, this is Josie over at Old Republic, and just want to make sure we show you we delivered the contract on the Smith estate yesterday at 3 o'clock. We have to get some things done in a timely manner to meet this. Can we send our runner over to pick up, or can you fax to us the letters and blah, 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 blah. Okay? What I'll do is when they're doing that, when they sent the offer over, I attach a letter from me, and it states, hey, Mr. Smith, this is Gary D. I represent the buyer buying the Smith estate, blah, 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 blah. And I put in there, if you have any issues with anything in the contract offer, let me know, and I'll have my attorney, Mr. Joe Blow, give you a call. You guys can discuss it. So what I'm doing here is setting the stage that the contract was signed by the estate. They want it. It was sent to the attorney. We have a timeline to 3 days to start it. They have to disapprove it to kill it. They can't say, no, we'll go with my agent now. No, you have to disapprove this offer, then go to their agent. Most of the time, they're not going to want to do that because their agent may deliver even less of an offer. Okay? And then they're looking bad in their client's mind. And then we set the stage that, hey, these guys have attorneys representing them. So I'm not going to be able to do too much maneuvering here because I have an attorney to deal with. So you know what? Just going to let this go. And that's normally what happens. They let it go and maybe a couple of little things they want in order. And we usually at this point don't have any troubles with them. Then, of course, the next time you do the deal, it'll be a little easier for you because they'll have some rapport with you. Remember, we reverse prospect attorneys. We do these deals first. And then once it closed, no strings, it went well, We get a reference from the estate, then we go to the attorney and ask, hey, Joe gave us a reference that we did everything we said we would do. We got them what they wanted on the estate sale. Would you be willing to give us a reference that we did a good job on this probate, for future value for us with other estates? And if you get that, and then that will lead us into what can we do to get some more of your business. We would love to be one of the agents that you give our name to interview with the estate. And then eventually you'll pick up enough attorneys that they're feeding you a lot of deals. Okay? Give service. Think service, don't think commission. Okay? And this will blow up for you. All right? Okay. Now let's talk about due diligence, closing, a little more in the state attorney, because now we're accepted. Attorney's getting the offer. 95% of the time it'll go smooth in the 3 days and we'll get what we need. The escrow is moving forward now, right? We got a ratified contract. Now we're setting up our inspections, our pests, our home, our roof, sewer lateral if needed, any city required inspections. If the pest shows possible foundation issues, get a foundation inspection. We're going to do all those because we need to know everything that's going to be a factor for our investor once we buy and close this house, remember? Because we're buying it at a price, they're paying our commission on top of what we're giving to the estate. They got to fix this whole house up, so we need to know everything. Don't leave any rooms for chance, because if the investor ends up losing on the deal or makes a very small return, they may not use you again. But I've had deals before where I told my investors, this is not a good deal for you guys now. We need the estate to come down another 20, and they're not going to come down. So rather than say, would you split the difference with them for 10, because this makes this deal too marginal for you, I think we should let it go, and we'll go find one that they'll work with us on this. I can sell this to a landlord or to a retail buyer, so I'll make out okay on it, but I don't want to put something in there with your money that I can't do what we want to do with it. And because you treat them and protect your investors this way, they're going to stay with you for life, okay? So just remember that. So normally by default, our contracts are 17 days, right? Our car contracts for doing all our due diligence inspections. And we'll go from 10 to 17. I've done them before at 5, 6, 7, 8 days. Depends on your investor buyer. If they're sophisticated, a lot of them will do their own inspections or they have their contractor with them, and they'll just go on that. They're not even going to pay for a pest, a roof, or home inspection. Their guy does it in one day, and they say, yeah, we can do it at these numbers or not. And we have to come in at a different number. But the reason you go with less days is if you have competition. If somebody else has put an offer on it already, and we're saying 17 days to remove our inspections, and what we're really telling them is your house is off the market for 17 days, and if everything works out to our liking, yeah, we'll close it. We'll remove that contingency in 17 days. Well, if the next offer is basically the same, but they're doing that in 8 days, then they're probably going to go with the 8 days one, right? Or at the very minimum, counter you back from 17 to 8. And if we're in it for 17 days, there's a reason for that, okay? We feel there's quite a bit of work here, or we feel we may not get our price that we really need after all the dust settles and all the inspections are in. So I need more time so I can find an end user buyer for the property. Okay. Now, what we do is if we're in escrow, the buyer's going to pay for all of the inspections providing we close escrow. If we don't close for some reason, we tell the sellers up front this. If we don't close for any reason, you're going to have to pay for the reports, because now that it's knowledge, you have to disclose these reports to any future buyer that comes after us if we can't close. So you need these reports. And by having these reports, if we're representing you, we get these reports out up front. So anybody that's making an offer already seen the reports, and we can cut those due diligence down to 3 days or so. And usually no contingencies because they have all the reports, providing they believe them. So you got to make sure that you put in there, because if your investor is paying for reports and you don't end up getting the property, and they're spending $700 to $1,000 every property, and you're into your fourth property, they haven't gotten it. They've spent $3,000 already before making any money with you. They may not be too happy with you or question that you can do what you say you've been doing. Okay, so that's how we do it. If we're closing, the buyer's paying for it. If we don't close for any reason, the seller is paying for it, and that's in escrow. If they don't have the money up front to pay, that's okay. It's attached into the deal, and they sign acknowledgement that they're paying for it. And then if something goes wrong, they're going after the seller, not me, not my buyer. Okay? Now we have the notice of proposed action. If you remember what that was from before, that is the notice that goes out to any heir that has an interest in this real estate, this estate property, and it's going to define with them the sales price and sales terms of the offer that the executor accepted. And they have up to 15 days to look that over, speak amongst themselves, and they can contest the sale and say, no, this is not a good deal for us. We don't like it. And what happens at that point, if they do this, your offer, your deal just stopped. And the only way it's going to continue forward is either you fix whatever the reason they're contesting, or you take the sale to court for court confirmation process, and you got to go through all that again. Okay? So what we do is we don't want the notice of proposed action to be prepared by the estate attorney the day escrow is open and they get the offer. And that's normally what the attorneys will do. They prepare it right away off the terms that are on the contract that was sent to them that was ratified. Now think about this. If this goes out to the estate and they see that they just got $375 for the property, and it was explained to everybody why, reports and this and that, no commissions, whatever, and they're good with that. And then we do our due diligence and we come back in 17 days and we find out there is a foundation damage, and man, we got to get another 20 grand off the property. And we go back to them and they're going to say, what's going on here? We just had a notice of proposed action that we're getting 375. Now we're getting a notice saying we're getting 355. What's going on? And what happens is they just don't believe anybody at that point. They think something's being pulled over them, and it's going to muddy up your deal, maybe cost you the deal. So what we do is we instruct in our addendum that the estate attorney will not submit or complete the notice of proposed action until 1 day after the inspection contingencies have been removed. Because what that does is allow us to get all those reports. We have our price that we're coming in based on cosmetic only, right? And now if those reports come in and are okay, we're moving forward. If they come in, there's a little bit of work on there, but we feel, you know what, we can absorb that. Because on those reports, most of them are 20 to 30% too high because it's contractors paying for high labor costs and things like that. And we know we can get it done for 20 to 30% cheaper. So if it's not too costly, we can still close on our deal. But if it is, and it makes a difference on our numbers, then we're going to renegotiate with the estate, like I told you. And we use all the reports and the whole bit. So if we're renegotiating with the estate at that time, we're going to have new terms. And once we remove our contingency, it will be tied into the new terms. We're removing all our contingencies based on counteroffer number 1 or 2, whatever it may be. Sales price to be $355. Escrow to close, blah, blah, blah. And that's usually what it is, just the price. Okay? So, due to notice of proposed action once, not to mention the estate would be charged twice for the time for it to prepare that notice of proposed action. Now, we also want to make sure that you get your 110% binder in there. Remember, we talked about the binder. Don't want to jam you up right now. That's just so our investor can get the title insurance costs back when he resells within 2 years, okay? But back to this notice of proposed action. What happens in reality is the executor or administrator is going to be talking to all the heirs, usually, either by phone while we're sitting there. We encourage this. We'll do we'll connect everybody on a 3-way call or whatever it takes, 5-way, and get everybody there, or live. They all came physically and we're presenting to everybody. And what happens is usually you work out any issues that a notice of proposed action would find later on that night when you're ratifying the offer. So if we get a price that everybody's in agreement with, and we know that no one's going to contest it in 15 days, then we'll ask that night for them to sign a waiver of notice of proposed action, and that allows us to bypass the 15-day plus 5-day mailing for the notice of proposed action to go out and come back. And that's how we can close deals in 10, 15 days because we're bypassing that 20-day period. Okay? Very important. Okay? All right. So, removing contingencies. Remember, with all the reports, we're sitting down. If we're asking for a reduction, we really need to be face to face. I don't have a problem if, let's say, the seller lives in Oklahoma. I like using Oklahoma a lot. I don't know why, but let's just say they're in Oklahoma, and we have a deal on the table, and I have 25,000 fee on my coming in strategy, and I have a 10 or 12,000 listing going out for sure. So I'm dealing with 35 to close to $40,000, excuse me, of commissions. I don't have a problem jumping on a plane and flying to Oklahoma, meeting with the sellers, and if I need to, stay over, or if not, fly back that night to present live so I can read their body language and explain things, and who knows what's going on in their mind when you're doing over the phone or Skype or whatever. So if you can, face to face, okay? Seller and all the heirs need to know that any of these inspections that we're bringing to the table, now or later on during due diligence, now that we're removing our contingencies, has to be disclosed to any future buyer if we don't close this. And I want to make sure that they understand you're either going to deal with this now with us, and hopefully we make an adjustment, we can close this, or you're going to deal with these inspections with the next buyer that comes in. And not necessarily somebody going to give you more money looking at the same numbers we're looking at it right now. The only chance of that happening is they're a retail buyer or a landlord hold buyer who can pay maybe a little bit more and be okay with that. But you're limiting yourself to the market that way. So you need to know that these reports you have to disclose, okay? We're going to factor in all of these costs to the net sales price. So at that $375 price that we're offering them, we're backing in the commission they're not paying, all the cosmetic work they're not paying, the inspections that they're not paying now that we have them, because at this point we're at the end of our due diligence timeline, 17 days or whatever it may be, and we have all our reports. We're showing them all that and all those X dollars, and what we're showing them is you're not really selling us the house for $375. You're actually selling us the house for $425 after you factor everything in. And then we go from there, okay? So I like to use an example one we did recently where the net sales price to the estate was $800,000. And the administrator was a Remax broker manager out of Seattle. It was her brother who passed away. The house was in San Francisco. We had been corresponding, and she looked at our offer. We came in at $775, I think it was, and or $750. She countered as the $800. Anyway, there's a longer story to that, but we ended up giving them the $800. But what we showed them was at $800, there was $101,500 worth of cosmetic work in order, at this time, about $30 a square foot we were using, in order for that property to come up to its fair market value, its ARV value. Then we showed them there was sales commissions of $32 that my buyer was paying me, 4% on that $800. There was about $8,000 in closing costs that we were paying for the seller, right? So when you added that all up on top of the $800, I was showing them really what my buyer is paying is $941.5. You would have to get an offer of $941.5, pay just a 4% commission, fix up all the work to get close to that, because that's close to a retail price, in order to net the $800. And although we knew there was a $1.2 million upside with this property, it was probably more 1.1, because a 1.2 would be if they added some square footage to some enclosed balconies that they had, and just actually seal them up and add them to the square footage with permits. So this house was on the side of the hill and a bunch of things. So it was a little bit of a gamble. But we explained this net at 941.5 we're giving you is basically the same as you getting, that's how you're going to get your 800,000 because you're actually selling it for 941.5 when you factor all this in. And she understood that, and she said, "Yeah, I'm good with it. I think 800 is a good number for us." So we got that deal. Now, I will also tell you that she kind of laughed after it was ratified to me. She kind of told me, "Gary, I think I got you." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I think you paid too much for this house." I said, "Well, we looked at it pretty close, and if that's how it turns out, so be it. But we feel confident we can do some good with this." And we had to come up. You got us up 25 grand, but that's okay. And my investor still wanted to do it, so we went. Okay. But if I had been countering, then I would have based my counteroffer on all the reports and everything else that comes up. I'd pull out all the comps again and show them. I said, "Look, I'll close this in 5 days." And that's what I did. I said, "We'll close this in 5 days if you'll go at 775, based on all this work now that's needed, no commission, whatever." And she said, "No," is what she told me. And she said, because there was another guy bidding on the property, one of my students, and she said, "Whoever gives me 800 first, I'll go with." And I gave it at 800 and about 15 minutes later, and got the property. Okay. But if I was going to counter at that time, okay, and what I did was I would set a counter back to them. Now these are in different numbers. Okay, this was another property. This is hypothetical on Main Street, but we're countering back at this price. And the waiver of NOPA, I put in there just so they understand that if they accept this, we're waiving the NOPA and whatever. So that would be your counter offer that you're coming back with at the end of due diligence, right? So we're removing our contingencies, but here's our new terms. And even if that meant bringing in a new buyer, I won't close it, but I have a buyer that'll close it at 350, not at 375. And don't get confused, 800 to 375. I'm talking just hypothetical numbers here. Just focus right now. This property was at 375, and we're countering it back to 350. Okay. Closing to be extended 5 working days. Waiver of NOPA to be signed. Everything else is okay in the prior offer. Okay. And if you can't get it signed, then you have to make a decision. And how we normally handle it is we say, "Give me 2 or 3 more days." We're still within our due diligence time of 17 because this is around the 14th or so. And let me see if I can get my buyer to come up a little bit. What I'm really doing is looking for another buyer at that time that we had been working with. Okay? Okay, good. So, a few more clarifications. The estate attorney, remember, 1 day after contingency removal, price and terms are set, right? After contingency removal. So that if we're at 17 days, that means after the 17 days due diligence, and we're coming in to remove our contingencies, and we have a ratified off or a reoffer on that, adjusted price, terms, whatever, that's when we're going to ask the attorney to give out a notice of proposed action on the final new terms. Okay? Remember that the heirs have 15 days to contest, plus 5 days mailing if you have to go with the notice of proposed action. If there's no contest within the 15 days, you can close. Or if we have to go to court because there is a problem and they're contesting, then we're going to take it to court and have a court confirmation of sale. Okay? Now, if there is a contesting by any of the heirs, you contact those heirs and you find out what that problem is and see if you can figure it out. I've done this several times. And usually it's something small. Somebody thinking somebody else in the family is getting over on them, or the administrator is getting over on them, or the administrator and the attorney are in cahoots. Or, usually it's something that has no merit. And you got to dive in and fix it. Because if you got $35,000 at risk here, it's worth your time and effort to figure out what the problems are and get them done. That's why we are here, right? Okay, got it? Okay, and remember, up front, usually the heirs are going to know all the contract terms. So if you're getting your offer ratified up front before we start our due diligence, that's when you want to have that waiver of notice of proposed action signed by everybody so you're okay. All right? All right. And if everything else fails, you're going to go to court confirmation and the court will decide if the deal's good or not. Okay? All right. So let's take a look again so you understand. We showed it to you in one of the earlier sessions what the notice of proposed action looks like. It's a two-page form, front and back. This is a front page that will spell out the terms of the sale. Doesn't go into too great details because remember there is an offer as well. This is just kind of saying the price usually. And then when you go to the back, that's where the first circle on top is where they would sign that or mark that box if they object to the proposed action. The second one is the consent. You don't have to do that one. As long as they're not contesting and getting it back, we're okay. All right, so that's what that looks like. And the waiver of notice of proposed action is this form. And what they would be doing is saying they waive the right to have the notice of proposed action, okay? And we get this signed, and that's what's going to go to title company. We get one for each heir. They sign it, and now we don't have to worry about that waiver. The waiver allows us not to worry about the notice of proposed action down the road, okay? So again, this is just foundation. Don't get all cut up in these forms and confused and why this and why that. This is not the time. We will break into the details when you are in a deal with us. And if you happen to be inner circle with us down the road, you'll be getting more training on all this, okay? But for right now, either or, we're going to learn by doing it, okay? So right now, we're just getting you this foundation, okay? Get your database going. So what happens if, after all this, you cannot get the price that you need? What are we going to do? Walk away from the deal after we put in a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks, who knows how long, maybe more, 6 weeks? That's usually what happens to you with your investor clients when you don't get the property and you say, okay, well, let's move on to the next one. I got another seller that wants to take a look at an offer from us. Well, we don't work that way. We put a lot of time in this. Remember, our hats we can wear any hat as a real estate agent. We were coming in with the level one here, but that discounted price just was not going to work. Now we have all of our numbers, all of our facts, but the estate is telling us, look it, we're not taking any less than the current contract price that we have in there. Okay, so on the $800,000 offer, we're not going any less. All right, so what we have been doing during that due diligence time is looking for another buyer. Or if it was a 375 offer, we were looking for another buyer, assuming that when all of the inspections come in, there may be movement that we have to do down in price in order to compensate for this extra work that comes in, pest, roof, home inspections, whatever it might be. So what we do when we first on a property and we get ratified is we're going into our buyer database, our landlord database, retail buyer database, and we're looking for buyers that this property could fit. And we have our network agent database. Hey, Joe lives in South San Jose where this property is. He's quite active there. Let's see if he has a buyer for this property. I go, Joe, we have one, over there in South San Jose on Main Street. It's a 3, 2, and 2. We're in contract right now. There's a possibility that if we don't get our price on this, that we're not going to be able to perform on it, that we will either probably be taking it to the market. But if you have a buyer, we might be able to come right back in and your buyer will pay that price if you have a landlord or a retail buyer, because we're coming in as a flipper, right? So our number is going to be low. Are you interested in working on that? Yes, I am, Gary. In fact, I'm working with 3 buyers right now in that school district, and they're actually looking for a home that they can fix themselves and get a little break on it. I said, okay. I mean, they probably would get at least a 10 to 15, maybe even 20% discount on the house if this works. Yeah, well, I want to know. Great, and we'll just split the commission on it. Yeah, for sure. So we have network agents to look at. We have our buyer database for ourselves from all the buyers that have called us and other probate listings we've had when we were selling them. We have landlords that we go to in the neighborhood. Remember how that we check with the title company to see what landlord owns more than 2 properties there in that subdivision. That may tell us that we have a landlord that likes that area, right? We're going to bring him another possibility of a rental at maybe 10, 15, 20% off. They love that. And of course, the retail buyers, right? FHA, VA buyers. We put out our ads, hey, no down VA available for this house. Now, of course, there's going to be work involved. VA is going to ask for a lot of things to be taken care of. We just factor that into our contract. Okay? This is in our plan B. While we're going through due diligence, we are looking for these buyers. We're not waiting until the last day and we have to remove our contingency and we can't do nothing. They won't give us the price reduction that we need. We're looking for this the whole 17 days, just in case we have a problem and we can't get the price reduced and our buyer can't pay that much for it now that all the reports are in. Okay? So being a network agent with us that all of you are planning to be, we hope, is great. As a network agent, you're going to have your own clients and we're going to split 6% commission, because usually when we come in, we want to get a 6%, so we're each making 3, but we'll do it at 2.5 each, just like you work right now. And so that's why it's really important for you to stay in contact with us as this training goes, because there'll be times when we'll have a property. Remember, we average 2,000 to 2,400 probate cases every year in the San Francisco proper area around the Bay, the counties there. So there's a good chance we'll have something that you can work on, right? And of course, if you're a partner agent with us, then you're inner circle and we're dealing with this stuff, on a monthly basis, more training, things like that. You'll be right on the pulse because you'll have all these properties at your fingertips, every Friday night, right? The way we do it. And you could be dealing with wholesale buyers. These could be your guys that go out and they're assigning properties that they tie up to other buyers. We can even deal with them and say, hey, I got one over here at X amount of dollars. We can't pay that much for it. If you have a buyer that can do it, we just have to get an assignment fee for you because our commission is going to be built in this number. Okay, you work it out. Okay? So, getting back to that plan B, if the estates wants more money because that 70-75% is not working, we're going to again explain to them for the ease of the sale and what you want at fast cash. We can't go that way. Okay, they know the cost now. They know what price will work for us, and we know what price will work for them. At 80 to 90% of 500 ARV or 350 offer, a $400,000 counter possibly. At 500,000, if we could sell it for 80% of that, we could be giving them 400 instead of 350 or 375. Okay, so at 90% of that 500, we had a retail buyer, we could be giving them 450, and maybe that 50 grand that has to be fixed up, we build into the contract for the buyer. Okay. We explain comps and costs, commissions, seller closing costs, all that. We make sure they understand where we're coming from. And we'll ask them for a few more days. Now we know their real number. They won't take our 350. They want the 375. Okay? So we're going to go find a landlord at 85% plus commission. So they might be in there at 90, 91. Okay? It's going to, of course, the price is going to be conditioned upon the as-is value of the property. If it's worth 100 and there's 20,000 worth of work, so 80,000 is what the estate wants, then that's where we're going to put our buyer in. And if they can buy it and put our commission into it, we possibly have a deal there. All right? Every property has its own set of circumstances. So we go through it, by the numbers and see what we can do with it. But my point here is we have different options to still earn on this property, give the estate what they want, okay? Because we've been shopping for an end user buyer from day one. day one being the day we were ratified, assuming that we probably won't close at our price that's in escrow after all the hardcore inspections come in, pest, roof, home inspection, whatever. Okay? We can assign our current offer to another buyer. Very easy. We can even rewrite the offer. And let's say that we're in there as is for 375 and we couldn't find anybody but an FHA buyer, but they have to get a loan, 3.5% down. So we have to factor in on top of the 375, we got to factor in our commission. We got to factor in the work that's going to be involved so it appraises. Okay? And if the buyer needs any help with closing costs, whatever that may be, because if we're at 375 from the estate and it will be worth 500 when it's fixed, if we have to go through all that and back end all these costs, and the buyer is still getting the property for maybe 485 or 475, we backed in at 100 grand worth of costs, fix up, commission, whatever. It's still a good deal for the buyer. They got a $500,000 property fixed up for 475. See how this works? And we just come back in at the end of our due diligence and tell them, look it, you said you won't go under 375. We told you we need to go to 350. You're holding at the 375. Is that the rock bottom? I talked to my investor, and he said if you can come up to 360, he can do the deal. No, Gary, we won't come under 375, but we will go to 370. We'll take another 5 off, okay? And at that time, I tell him, I just can't do it for my investor. 360 was pushing it, but I take it away a little bit. I say, but the good news is I have a buyer that I've been talking to about the property just in case we ran into this problem, and I think I can get you to 375 for it. Really? Yeah, the only difference is it won't close in 5 days. We may have to go 30 days or so because they're going to have to get a loan. We may have to get a little work done on the property. You don't have to pay for it, but, to get the loan. If that's workable to you, I can get you your 375. So that's how we do it. Sometimes I say, you know what, just give me 360. I don't want to deal with all that. Or can you go to 365? And maybe we can do that. But if not, our plan B is we have the buyer ready to take it. Okay? How great is that? You know the number the seller will take, and you go out and find a buyer for that. Okay? And at this whole time, our cash deal has been working, which we get the double end as well, and then get a listing at it. So we ran really good there. In this one, we're just going to double end because it's going to be an end user, either a landlord or a move-in buyer. So we'll be double ending it, but there won't be a third side or a fourth side. Okay? So at this point, we're just the agent for the buyer and representing the seller. We're going to have a commission agreement signed, okay? Because now we're not getting paid from the buyer, or the buyer is paying us, but it's being built into the commission, into the sales price. So we'll add that our 4, 5, 6, whatever we're charging, have a commission fee agreement signed by the seller because we didn't have a listing, right? Sometimes we'll say, let's get the listing signed just for 30 days or just for this buyer to close it out. Whatever it takes, whatever makes sense. So we're covered, okay? We're going to build in all the money we need to get that retail buyer to get his financing and be happy, okay? And then when it's all said and done, we're going to ask for a reference from the PR and the attorney. So it didn't matter who ended up buying the property. The point here is we're preparing for any of those things that can come up. Because what will happen is if you have a rocky point during your due diligence when you come back and you're out of contingency time, any other offer that's been calling these people every week said, hey, your offer fall through yet? Your offer fall through yet? It probably will. It probably will. Call me when that does. Don't re-sign anything else. They'll probably come back and lower the price to you, whatever. You have to be able to address all that before you go there and let them know that these what these people will say. But we're not lowering our price on you just because we're trying to get it cheaper. Mathematically, we can't buy because these costs doesn't make it a good deal for the investor. Remember, this is a business. Okay? Now, again, this may sound, your head may be hurting right now, okay? Because this is not simple, write a VA deal and close it. There's a lot to this, okay? But it's so lucrative. And you just have to stay with it. and you have us holding your hands all the way through as many deals as you need. It's good for us. The more deals you need help on, right? If we're getting half your commission, the more deals we do at you, the better it is for us too. Okay? So, but eventually you'll be able to stand on your own feet. And if that's after one deal, that's cool too. We're okay with that. Now, the buyer counter offer. Okay? So when you do a counter offer, it's just like you would do in anything else. We would come back at the end of due diligence and say we're ready to purchase, but we have some condition changes and we're going to go through them all here. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through each one of these, but it's just to cover where we're at, where we're going. You know, in this case, price to be 550 with 375 net to the estate. Okay, that's that same 375 deal, right? Closing to be extended 45 days. So we had to extend it now. We're at the end of our due diligence and our cash offer price and timeline. But it has to be extended 45 days or until roof and pest clearance because most lenders are going to want the work done before they'll close. We want a waiver and NOPA to be signed right away. Okay. New buyer is Ken and Barbie Dahl. That's our new buyer. We're showing them. And you may think the estate's going to be confused. All they care about, am I getting my 375? Okay, great. Because what's the alternative? They stop this, they have to go deal with somebody else or list it and put on the market. They're going to wait 45 days anyway, if not more. So you have to be good enough to explain all that to them, okay? Buyers buying with conventional financing or whatever it may be, FHA, VA, doesn't matter. You're just spelling out the new terms. You could also write a new offer, but it's difficult to do that. Sometimes we'll do that because if they're getting an FHA or VA loan, it'd be difficult to use our offer plus the buyer counter offer, so we'll probably clean it up. But I'm just trying to get the concept right now to you guys, okay? So don't question, you know, well, we're going to have it on the car contract because we can't. Yeah, most likely we will. But right now, just follow the mindset, okay? Okay? All right, state seller to sign new buyer's offer with terms and conditions. I just said that, right? The new offer will take place. Said as is sale to the estate, buyer's paying for work and buyer's closing in the price. Buyer's paying agent commission of 4%. We spell it out in the inflated price, blah, blah, blah. We get this signed there in our due diligence. We have our contract, and boom, we're ready to go. Okay? I hope this is resonating with a lot of you here. And again, don't freak out if you're not. If you get all this and you understand fully, I'm telling you, you're a rare bird, okay? But if you're understanding the mindset and the thinking, then that's a good thing because everything else will play itself out. So let's talk about the earning differences now between a level 1 and level 2. So you'll just know this is our level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways we get paid, right? So at level 1, on a 500,000 ARV, we offered 350. We're looking at 4%. So that's 15 to us, and a listing coming out at 5 for another 10. So total income on the level 1, just for buying it, 25 grand, and then listing it, right? 25 grand potential on a $500,000 sale that you normally would be making 3% if you were. So 12.5 to 15 grand, and then you'd be done with it. Okay. Now, if you were the selling agent and collected the 2.5 on the backside after the property's repaired and you listed, and you're picking up another 12.5, your potential income is 37.5 off of one deal that you bought for your investor at 350. Hope that looks good to you. Now, level 2, we couldn't do it this way. We had to just find a buyer for it, right? That same ARV of 500, we're going to sell that property and pick up 5%. So we're picking up a $20,000 to $25,000 commission. We're double ending on this property. Potential income, again, if it's 4 or 5 that you're charging, is 20 to 25 grand. That's all it is to you. You just brought an offer in at 500 grand. Maybe you had to build in some work or whatever it took to get that 500 ARV, and you picked up 4 to 5%, and that's it. You're done with the deal in 45 days. We didn't have to worry about a listing. We just brought the offer in, got our fee agreement signed, and boom, we are done. Okay? So start to finish on these are about 2 months, 3 months sometimes. Now, if you're doing 4 level 1s per year, that's bringing you 100 to 150 grand a year based on these numbers. That's one a quarter, okay? And then if you add in the 4 level 2s, because you're also going to be getting a listing, right? So on 4 level 1 properties that you buy, you're getting the listings out of it. On the 4 level 2s, you're making 80 to 100 grand a year. So on 8 properties, you got a possibility of 180 to 250 per year. That's a good income, folks, for not working too much. Okay, so 4 level 1s per year, 100, 150. 4 levels 2 a year that you just brought contracts to them, 80 to 100, and a total of 8 deals, 180 to $250,000 a year is what you could be looking at. Okay, so the foundation course is now complete. We've opened your eyes and kind of tell you how we do this start to finish. The rest of this is going to be rolling up our sleeves and first of all getting you trained on how to make appointments that we can go on together or with one of my agents and start getting properties under contract. And then the second part of your education will be, okay, we got the property, we've got an apartment, we're in escrow, and then we're going to be teaching how we write the offer and all this other stuff. So right now your action plan is this: lead calling. We want you to start beginning to call leads. And we're giving you free access to our leads, which are released every Friday night after 7 p.m. and will be about 1 week old on average. Okay, we went through this, the probate tracking sheet, showed you where to find the PR information on that sheet, the phone number if they have it. If no phone number, you're going to send your mailer, so there'll be no excuse. So when we send you next, you're going to get an email from us in the next day or two on how to access everything, okay, again, but we're going to show you so you can get those leads and get going, okay? Now, follow up. If you make contact with the PR after the call, we want you to write on the back of the PTS what your conversation notes were. Hey, what was your conversation with them? So we know what they're talking about with you. What did you wish you had not said? Okay, that always comes up in the beginning. What do you wish you would have said? And then send me an email on this so I can respond to you along with the PTS, okay? And that's basically it. You're going to keep doing that until you get an appointment, okay? Now, add non-contacts to the next beat. So what happens is Friday night, let's say there's 40 leads released, and you go through there and there's 20 phone numbers. You call those 20 and you talk to 2. You leave messages on 18. And you send out 20 flyers, and 1 or 2 of them contacts you the next week. Then everybody else that you didn't get any contact from or response call, you put into your database for follow-up later on. Anybody that you have conversations with and they ask for information or they want to do something, you put into your hot file, because that's what we're going to be going after weekly with them. Okay? All right? And remember again, the script that we went over in the past sessions was how to contact the estate. I'm going to give you a couple again here. Hi, is this Mr. Smith? Hi, Mr. Smith. I'm Gary D. You don't know me, but I have a question regarding your court confirmation date coming up on January 10th, where you're going to be approved to be the executor of the Smith estate. If they answer, what do you want to know, because it's live, and just ask them, will the estate consider looking at an offer from my client on the Main Street property once you're approved as the executor administrator? Or would you be willing to take a look at an all-cash as-is offer right now, no commission, subject to you, of course, being approved? That's all you got to do. If you do that religiously, you're going to get people. Don't try to talk to them about, I'm the best agent, I'm with the #1 probate team, I'm this, that, or whatever, because you're just getting it's the same information that they're hearing from other people that are chasing these. Just cut right to the script. Would you be willing to look at an all-cash as-if, no commission offer right now? And you're going to get some type of feedback. No, we're not. We're keeping it. Maybe, but I got to wait till I'm approved. Okay, great. How about I contact you after you're approved? Okay, would that be okay? Yeah, for sure. Great. Listen, I want to send you my contact information, a little bit about what we do, so that time comes, you'll know a little bit more about it. What's your best email? I'll send it over to you. Because we want to get that email address, right? All you want to be doing. You can have a script even simpler than that, and just say, Mr. Smith, will the estate be selling the estate property at 123 Main Street? Yes, we will. Great. Can we submit our client's offer to you? Then you just go from there. Okay? Now, of course, you should open up, hey, Mr. Smith, this is Gary D. I'm with EXP Probate Services, and I'm calling you about the Main Street property. Will the estate be selling that property sometime during probate or after final distribution? Yes, we will. Great. Can we submit our client's offer to you? And go from there where it takes you. No, we won't be selling it. Okay, I understand that. And Mr. Smith, just tell me this, will you? If you were going to sell it, is there an agent that you use in town there with that property? If you were going to sell it later on? Yes, my brother's an agent right there. He's about, half a mile away at Century 21. Okay, great. Anyway, I wish the best for you. Again, my condolences. We throw that lead away because the chance of us getting that property is slim because he's going to use his brother. And if you wanted to, you could keep it if you had a buyer for it, submit the offer to them and their buyer. But usually that means they're going with somebody else. Okay? All right. So leads. This is where you go to dfprobatesystem.com to collect your leads. Okay? Every week on Friday after 7 o'clock, the leads are released. And right now, at the time of this, because this is going out to you that are just training in its first 3 sessions, and we're in December, your password is ACES, ACES, case sensitive, lowercase. Okay, and that's going to be good for you guys until the first Friday night in January. So we're giving you a little over a month, close to a month, and you can go in there and access all of these probate tracking sheets. They're there. And each week a new batch will be going out with all the contact information and everything. And what I'm sending you all is my session on contacting the estate again, okay? And the lead, so you'll have those so you can refresh if you need it. Or if you have a question, you just contact me because I want to get you guys to become a machine and calling out to these estates, okay? All right? You have to be able to do this consistently because you want to get leads in your pipeline. So every Friday night at 7 o'clock, you'll be accessing the new leads for the week. Call or mail these by Friday, okay? The following Friday, because you're going to have a whole new set coming out Friday night. Set any appointments that you can. And all you got to do with me is, give me a 2-day notice on your appointment set. Unless it's an extreme case and they have to see us tomorrow, we can figure that out. We'll get somebody to go there with you if I can't, okay? Make all your notes on the conversations that you're having them so we can fine-tune those. Google Calendar is good to use, so I can see your calendar, you can see mine, and we'll know where to plug in dates when you have an appointment, okay? So this concludes session 3 of the foundation training. I would advise that you listen to these 3 sessions, each one of them at least once a month as you're going. Just worry about calling right now and getting good on the phone and talking to PRs and finding out the rude ones and the mean ones and what went right, what went wrong. And pretty soon you're going to find your voice. Prospect 3 times per week minimum. The reason it's 3 times is you do it in the morning, you do it after work hours during the week, and you do it on the weekends. You can go 1 hour each one, so 3 hours a week. You can go 3 hours each one if you want. But 1 hour a week should be enough to get through all of your new leads for the week. That gives you 3 hours on the same 30 to 40 leads to get through. And half of those probably won't have phone numbers. The other ones you send your flyers, okay? So weekday, weeknight, weekends. Set a timeline and don't move it for anything unless you're sick or a family emergency, okay? Because you're going to be looking for now business when you call and send flyers and future business, okay? And then what I want you to do is set up a 10-minute call with me, As you start calling, you get through a whole week. The next week, we're going to set up your 10-minute call with me, which I do on Friday mornings. And that's your accountability call with me. And I'm going to ask you, what did you do? How many calls did you make? How many PRs did you speak to? Any appointments set? How many flyers did you send out? How many total leads were there for the week? Okay, that's what I'm going to be asking you, things like this, and then answering your questions. It goes quick, 10 minutes, but those accountability calls will really help you out. All right, so this concludes the training. Thank you so much. Again, take this for what it's worth right now. It's just a foundation. And as we get into deals, that's when you're really going to learn, but you're going to earn while you learn on these deals. So the name of the game right now is get good on contacting the estate. Don't get frustrated, because you're going to find, I'm telling you right now, let's say there was 30 leads released Friday night, last Friday. And there was, of those 30, 20 had phone numbers. You called all 20 and you didn't get a hold of one person. You just left messages. And at the other 10, you sent your flyers out. You haven't heard anything. That's going to happen more weeks than not. But once you get 25 conversations going with the estates, in no matter where they're at in the process, that's when the deals are going to start coming to you on a regular basis. It's going to take a while to get there. So don't worry about how many appointments did I get. I'm getting all these no's. Can't get a hold of anybody. Worry about the ones you did talk to and they wanted some extra work from you. You know, more about what you did, or contact me once I get approved. That counts for a conversation. You want to have 25 of those working, and then you follow up good. You have to follow up with these people with something sent to them at the very longest every 2 weeks, maybe even the first month every week. Send them something out, not so much about you, just about market conditions, something about probate, something about that area where the house is, just something with your face on it and your phone number, so they're getting to know who you are. And keep following up, and eventually you're going to have 25 conversations going, and they're all going to be in different stages of the probate, and they're going to want to be doing something sooner or later. And then who you think is going to be the one that they're going to call at least 30 to 40% of the time, it's going to be you. And that's how these deals are going to start coming, and you'll start putting listings together where they don't want an offer. You'll have double end deals. I'm telling you, folks, this works. We still do it. We did it again this week. We sold a probate. We didn't get the double end this one, but that's okay. For one of the buyers that called us on our probate, on our property, we were able to sell them another house, pick up a full commission there, and list their home. That's how this is all in 1 week right now, because we're working again. I've been 2 years off with basically the training and getting everything done with network agents and building rev shares and stuff like that. We're in the market for 2019 to do a lot of deals again, like I did in 2016. So we're looking for partners. We're looking for agents that can take and run with this, to have a never quit attitude until they do at least one probate. That's your commitment. Do one probate where you get paid on it. Then you tell me, did I like this, niche, or do I not? And then do whatever you want to do. You're not paying anything for this training. Remember that. We do one deal. You'll get paid. I'll get paid for training you. And if you don't like it, you never have to touch this again. Okay? You haven't been out of anything, plus you made some money. All right? So thanks for taking the time with this. We'll look forward now, again, for those of you that are network agents, we'll get stuff out from time to time to you guys. You always have access to me via email rather than calling me, because if you have questions, I want them in email form so I can refer back to them if I need to, or if I'm looking at them late that night. I'd rather have it that way. If you're our inner circle partner agents, then of course you have access to me 24/7. You'll have access to all the leads, ongoing, and we'll go from there. So I find every time at this point, when I'm done with the foundation, I can barely talk. I'm getting to that point already. But I want to thank you all for taking the time, taking 5, 6 hours of your time to look at this niche. I hope you find it of value to you, because I'm telling you, right now you don't know what you don't know on what this can bring to you in terms of production. Even if you're just doing 50, 60, 70,000 a year, which is a decent job. It's not a top end job, but a decent job. But maybe you're semi-retired, you're on a retirement program or whatever. Uh, you can double that with the probates, just doing one deal a year. You could double that. So you need to, I'm sorry, one deal a quarter. You could double what you're currently earning right now. And that's not a lot of extra work. One deal a quarter. So don't blow this off if you get a little confused or it's getting frustrating because you don't know it. You don't need to know it right now. All you have to do is keep pushing forward until we get a deal together in the hopper with you, that you were the catalyst of getting that appointment. We put the deal together with you. You're earning 50%. That's when we're going to be explaining the rest of this. But once you get good at setting appointments and creating relationships with estates, and you start having 2, 3, 400 of these PRs that didn't sell the property in your database on probates, your whole world's going to change. But you have to pay the price for it. You got to stay with it. You're just in the beginning stages right now. I don't care if you're a 300 a year top agent doing a lot of deals. If you want to add this niche to you, you got to pay the price right now again, just like you did getting to where you are earning 300,000 a year. Okay, and this possibly can double that business for you, depending on how good you are. The system is there, folks. I've been earning with it since 1987 and adjusting it to market conditions. The only question mark we have in this whole thing is you. Your work effort. Will you stay with it? Are you a quitter when it gets tough? Or do you understand the tougher it gets in the beginning, the sooner success is coming? And you stay with it and say, I'm not stopping this until I get one deal. Because once you do the one deal, it's over. You'll see, wow, I got through it. I actually liked it. Made some friends with these people I helped out. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? All right. Thank you so much. Until we talk again, God bless.